Hi guys, it's me, Carrie Silver Lining Mena. In this episode, I had my friend Michelle on. And Michelle, she's an amazing medium and she's so sweet. If you've watched her on Channeling Eric, do you know what I mean? She's just like this kitten that you just want to hold close to you. She's so sweet. I love this girl. And she's actually agreed to come help me recreate what's next in Silver Linings because I'm pretty much done whining about Unrequited Love. I'm not done talking about the twins, but I am done whining about them. This episode, this reading I had, again, Michelle is so amazing. Go watch her on Channeling Eric. Go get a reading from her. If you haven't seen her on, how could you not? If you're watching this, then you probably know her from Channeling Eric because we're all part of the same old bubble. So check her out, and I will put her. I'll be sure and have a link to her website in my paragraph. And she's gonna come work with me some more. Isn't that fun? I'm so excited for that. And let's see. In this reading I had, Eric did a lot of validating for me of things I already knew, but he validated for it. And sometimes we need to hear that and know that we're on track and doing the right thing. And not only that, it's also he also gave me a lot of guidance. He gave me some clues to things, some of which I seemed to catch on right away. Like when we talked about my body, I had to introspect and self-reflect a little bit more later on, and about many things, including like my body. And then he was trying to give me some information about my power, how I can self-empower myself, how I can trust in the journey, etc. And I was thinking one thing, but it was another thing. And I'm going to talk about that in another video, which I actually just recorded. I'm going backwards now to make this intro. So not, and another thing Eric did, which was he made love declarations to me. He made it very personal, and we kind of talked about our relationships throughout the times. Not a lot, just this much, but it was enough to, fill my heart up with love because I've always been the second best and secret girl. And so far, Avery's the only one that made public love declarations to me and of my love interests. And so now Eric has too. And I wonder the reason for that. Was I not worthy of it enough, and not in his eyes, but in my own eyes, that I could not attract that public love declaration because I've been so used to being second best secret. At first I believed it was just because he doesn't just belong to me, he belongs to everyone. But I do have a special relationship with him. I am, we all belong to the same little soul family. We share an oversoul. So he is special to me, and I was, it was nice for him to, you know, say that to the masses. It was very sweet. I appreciate that. Oh, and the way he described it, what he showed Michelle was like, well, you'll see it, but when she describes that tornado, that was so beautiful to me that might be the inspiration for my next tattoo. We'll see. All right, I don't know what else I have to say about this intro. If there's anything I left out, I'll type it in my paragraph. But enjoy this. Find what works for you. Find ways to take the information that I get and apply it to your own life, because there's always something there. If you're watching this, you're drawn to it, so you're going to get something out of it. That's the way that shit works. So find out what belongs to you. All right, you guys, thank you so much for continuing to follow along with my journey, and I hope that that from like a vicarious position that you too get excited for me and the things that I have learned in this episode. All right, you guys. Thanks. Okay, so we're just in the middle of this. I'll do intros later. Here's
Okay.
Michelle.
Okay.
Go.
Okay. So I was just saying, I just started as soon as we started connecting, I started out it comes. And Eric is here, of course, and Eric just loves you so much. There's such a deep connection. I know there's so many intricate levels of your connection with Eric,
Yeah.
but it is so deep. And when I was looking to see like who's coming in today and Eric is like coming with a gift. He's coming with a gift for you today. And like today is because he's like, don't be nervous. Don't be nervous. There's nothing coming today that's gonna scare you or worry you. And he's like, don't be nervous because this is a gift. And the gift is you. The gift is you. And he's bringing a part of you out to your awareness today and saying that's what we're going to do. And he says that there's a real lift in store for you, and you'll already feel it as we're talking today. You'll feel the lift, and you'll feel a new sense of awareness for yourself. He says this year's been a really big deal for you, that it has really you've gone through so many twists and turns, and like I haven't even got through all your videos.
Oh my gosh,
Like,
girl, it was
you
radical.
know, yeah, and like I've seen, I think the last one that I saw was probably around Christmas time, and he says that every time you sit down to sit in front of the camera and talk, he says literally the next day you've got new revelations.
It's true. I
Like
can't
it's
keep
like
up with myself.
shit. Like he's like shit. He's like I should be doing this every day, but there's just so much going on. And he says it's once you get a connection, and he's showing like the bzz, bzz, bzz. Once you get this connection, he's like it's then all of a sudden you roll with that, and then boom, something else hits you, and you roll with that. And so he says, really he wants you to look at because he's talking about how you're really looking at the trust from everywhere, the trust around you, the trust in yourself, the trust in this process. And some days he says are better than others. Some day like some days he says the trust is like, yeah, okay, I get this. And then other days it's like, what the fuck is going on? Like what? Like he's like, and he says, but what if the trust was in the pattern in yourself? Was in the pattern of what you've been experiencing. Just what if it wasn't always in the information out here, but it's in recognizing your own patterns?
Mm-hmm.
And he says, because you're getting that.
Mm-hmm.
He says, you're noticing that. You're noticing all those patterns. And he goes, that's what you can rely on. And that only comes from within you because you figure that out.
Yeah.
He says, so that's a biggie. That's a really big one. And he says, with the information and the wisdom that you've come armed into this year with, he says you will only continue to roll. And I don't know why he's showing me, like, those cookies, like those, they're like peanut butter balls that are like rolled in cornflakes and all this, like,
The
he's
nu-
showing me like one of those snacks, like rolled in all of the like yum chocolate chips and like all this stuff. He's like, you're rolling all this information, and it's all the good stuff. It's all the sweet stuff.
Mhm.
It's all the yummy stuff. And so yeah, so he's here. He loves you. He just says, I love you because I love you. You know how much I love you. And he's been around you. So you must know that he's been around you quite a bit lately. He always is around you, but I mean, have you felt him? Have you been talking to him? Have you been,
Yes,
yeah.
I have. Yeah.
Hmm. And what's been going on with okay, so you said you messaged me and said remind me or remind
Oh,
this,
okay.
yeah,
It
okay.
was kind of a small thing. It was so long ago, but I remember it. But what happened was you had posted something, and then then you channeled a message from him, and it
Mm,
was something like the first "Hi everyone" from Erik. That was
yeah,
all I needed to read, and I was like, it's like he squeezed my heart just from that one word, and I didn't even read the rest of it. That's all I needed
yeah,
was just
yeah,
feeling him like that, and so I wanted
yeah,
to pass
yeah.
that on and thank him for that squeeze.
Oh, he says that you're so welcome, and it's so funny because I felt you so much when I'm writing those.
Really?
So that, yes, um uh because you've been in my awareness, because I know we were connecting, and I see your pictures pop up, and so I see what's going on, but I feel you so much when
Wow.
I'm writing with Erik. And
Really?
so I know, yes, and I know that when I feel that there's a consciousness stream that's active there. There's something going on there. So that doesn't surprise me that you had that was specially for you. Um, and
Oh.
has he been doing something with your electronics, or with your, have you had something going on with lights, or with um like there's something funky going on with your
I don't
thinking,
I don't
or there's gonna
know.
be?
Maybe there's gonna be, but
Hmm.
I thought about him and my electronics this morning.
Maybe that's what he's getting at. So Eric will always come around in a the way he says it to me, he gets me to say things sometimes that I don't get it until well after.
I
Like,
don't
he
know if
will
that's
say
it or
things that
not.
but it could very well be, and he says if that's the way you take it, then he
Right.
goes, "Go with it. Go with it."
He probably prefers that interpretation.
He's not denying it. He's not denying it. So he's like,
Well,
"As
I
it
don't.
goes."
That he shares the higher self with Avery, so I am like connected that way. And he was
Yes.
also, the man who broke my heart in the past life, and I didn't finish my twin
Yes.
work. So I feel like all of these lives that I'm connected to with right now, I've had romantic relationships with him. Not, not
Yeah.
Eric in the flesh, but Eric in spirit. So
Yes.
he's my
His essence.
boyfriend.
His essence, because he's showing me a visual of being intertwined, and so he shows it like a tornado, and the tornado's got colors to it, and so he says that these are all the lifetimes and the experiences that we've had together, and all he says if you can imagine a tornado is not just one little twirl of wind, it is all of this energy built up together and swirling all the time. And he says, so we're swirling in all different locations all at the same time, right in this very moment. And he says, so yeah, we are connected. We're forever connected.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
that's.
really sweet.
I have a question. Oh,
Yeah,
go ahead.
yeah. No, he's just saying, he just says that, he says, this is a really big point in your healing. And so there's a lot of releasing. There's a
Hmm.
lot of releasing taking place. And he said, sometimes with releasing, it's not so much about the big revelations
Hmm.
because the revelations are happening all the time. He
Yeah.
says, but what's happening is you're having more acceptance of yourself, more
Yes.
acceptance of who you are, more acceptance also of what you're experiencing in the present, where you are. And he's pointing to, I thought this was interesting because when we talked last week before you went away, he was saying like, no, this is good. This is good that we talk after
Mhm.
you go away. So there must have been some goodness that occurred with your time away with your family, because he's saying that like there was healing that was done within you, and he's also connecting it to the moon. I know we've got a moon coming up in the next few days, so there's some nice coming together for whatever you've been
Okay.
experiencing in the past 2 weeks. So okay, now I'll zip it.
Okay. I did have some healing times with my family, and well, I'll ask that other question since we're on the family now. My well, I had so much stuff. I have, such a tumultuous relationship with my husband, but I feel like
Mhm.
now the fights are finally becoming productive. I am seeing those patterns, and I feel like, we fight over the stupidest, inconsequential things, but I feel like that's good. I don't want to fight about real world stuff. It's mostly the
Mhm.
dynamics of the interactions. It, because their input on that. Am I on to something with?
No, you are, because Eric says, he goes, you're so right, because he says the relationships within our closest relationships to us within our family and our inner circles are our very best teachers. He
Mm-hmm.
goes, that's where the real work is done. So we may go out to these other places, we may have views on other people on the outside of us, but we will bring back all these feelings from all these other locations and work them out with those that we are closest to.
Okay.
And so he says that your relationship is evolving, but he says that don't think of it as a linear process. So he says, so we think of, it's gone through this step one, step two, step three, but he says, think of as you evolve, you're also evolving to new versions of him. You're
Yes.
creating new versions of him.
Yes, I
So
know.
he says, this is the part where for a long time you felt, so I'm way over here. He's way over here. And how will this ever meet in the middle? And he says, but what you're seeing is you're actually seeing how creation, how timelines, and how it really only comes from the work we do within ourselves to affect everything in our reality. And he goes, and this is where we get into some of the deeper stuff where it's Michael, right? Michael? Your
No,
husband's
that
Michael?
no, my husband Michael's the twin
Okay.
one. Robert's
Okay,
the
which
husband.
Robert. Okay, okay. So Robert, he says you're seeing different versions of Robert.
Mhm.
So, and he says what's quite amazing about this too is Robert is seeing different versions of Robert. So this is different for him because he says there are things that needed to happen over this last year to bring you to the place that you're at
Mhm.
together.
Mhm.
And he says, so it's really been, you've been throwing a ball back and forth between the two of you. And sometimes that ball's real heavy. And of course, he uses balls.
He likes the
so
big balls.
it's the way he's throwing it too. He's got it like between his legs. Like, so Eric. Uh,
Did,
anyway, the visuals. But he says that sometimes the ball's heavy and sometimes it feels light and sometimes it feels complicated.
mhm.
And he says sometimes the texture changes. But the thing is you're handing it back and forth, but there's evolution to it. There's growth to it. And where it felt like it was you doing everything inside you to make all the changes, to make things happen, he says it's now happening in that cycle on the other side. And he goes, how fucking amazing is that? He goes, that's the gift. That's the real gift because he goes, you know what, Carrie? He says, you're seeing that it's right in front of you and has been all along. And that's what's happening. And he goes, and that's a beautiful gift because that is in evolution. And he says, you've already crossed the tipping point with him. You've already crossed a bridge with him. So
How
what's
did
happened energetically, he says, you're walking through that physicality. You're working it out in the physical with him right now.
how does this current inner work we're doing with each other change our trajectory? Does it?
He says it does because he says, you know, this is where we enter free will into everything. And he goes, and this is the beautiful part about our existence, is he says it never really has been this great big hard and fast blueprint. But he says, we take what we need at the time that we need to hear things in whatever way that we need to get through it or understand it or process at the time. And we
Mhm.
evolve. And as we evolve, our understanding starts to change. And he says, and so when our understanding changes, we then have the opportunity to create different. But the best part about creation is it happens from the truth within us, not from this wishing, not from this forcing, not from this making, but it happens when things are really shifting inside of us, when we've really learned lessons, when we really feel the difference,
Mhm.
when we really put the work into doing something, not because we feel we have to, but because we want to, because we want better for ourselves, because we want better for our lives. And he says that's self love. That's the real roots of self love. And when you do that, he says, then you start to turn. And he shows me like, those watch, like the pieces of a watch. There's like
Yep.
everything's turning. He says, so everything is doing a little bit of this. And he says, and these are all of these timelines that are available to you
Mhm.
because they all do exist. He says they all
Okay.
exist at one time. So it's you and your higher self making these agreements, he says, in every now moment based on the free will decisions that are occurring that start to direct you. So he says, yes, there has been a shift in your blueprint. And he says, using the word contract is so stiff. He goes, it is so stiff, but he goes, for the idea to understand that we do come in here with certain contracts and some are more solidified than others.
Mhm.
But he says, you girl, he goes, you shifted a lot. And he
Yes.
goes, especially in this last 6 month period.
Mhm. I feel like he's also answering a question, and maybe he could be more specific about this when he's talking about these blueprints. For a while, I felt like big remorse because I didn't finish my twin flame work with Michael, and they brought me another one, which I really like this other one, but I had an impression that I created a need for it, but now I'm kind of leaning towards that was already a path. I just shifted onto that one. So he
Mm-hmm.
wasn't like a mistake or an added thing. It was always because I feel like I could not have learned the things I've learned without that double twin experience.
That's right. And Eric goes, that's right. And he says, very perceptive. He says,
Thanks.
that's right. Because he says Nothing is ever a mistake.
Uh-huh.
Nothing is ever a mistake. And he says, and what is created and co-created with the universe is always meant to be for your good, even if it doesn't feel that way in the moment that you're
Mhm.
humanly experiencing it. But when you go through it, when you come together with whatever you have created that is feeling in alignment with you, you then understand how important that process was. So yeah, he says, and remember too, finishing twin flame work, he goes, sometimes there's an expectation that's put around what finished means, what exactly that is.
What
And
does that mean?
he says, what if we already said that you have finished it?
I
What if
think
we,
I
yeah,
think I have.
yeah. And he says, and that's the gift. He goes, Carrie, that's the gift.
Yeah.
Because rather than dangling the carrot in front of you saying, I'm running for this carrot, I'm
I'm
running for
doing
this
it.
carrot,
I'm
you're,
self-propelled now.
yeah.
And I
And he
even,
goes, that changes everything.
does that mean my carrots are gone though? Do I still get to eat my carrots or should I not know?
He goes, that means that your carrots are placed in front of you if you choose to. If that's what your where your desires are, that means you create your carrots.
Hmm. Okay. Okay. I can't control those carrots, so that's a
No,
confusing
he
one.
goes, you can't. And he goes, and this is the other part too, is he says, think of it as he goes, the work that you've done, they have provided this means for you to go in and do this work, which
Hmm.
has created this. Um, he says, rather than think of it as a cutting of strings, it's transformed the connection. So
Okay.
it's transformed it. So he says, and because free will is a big part of, well, he says it is the wheels of the world, it is the wheels of everything in the universe. So because that's at play, he goes, you can only really take care of your end of things.
I know.
And he goes, and that's what you're doing. And he says, so will there be more that comes there from that? He goes, well, that's hard to say because right now, he goes, the focus is on you and what you're creating right around you right now.
Yes, that makes so much sense. I mean, that's like he's just validating all of the things that I
Yeah.
already know, and I appreciate that because validation can matter.
Yes.
And then, when he said that I don't need what did he say? I can't remember, but I was thinking about how loving myself, not wanting and wishing things to happen right now. I love
Yes.
myself enough that I just speaking in hypotheticals that I would
Yes.
not want that twin love coming back to me right now or any love
Right.
because I'm not happy with myself yet. And I only want to attract a love when I'm fully in love with myself. So I feel
Yes.
like, yeah, but
And
I,
he said that you've built, so he says, here's the thing. He says, so what you've done is, he says, think of it this way. Think of how, he goes, let's look at back about 2 years ago.
mhm,
And he goes, and let's say the house of Carrie was this beautiful looking home, but inside the wallpaper was peeling. And inside, he says there were some holes in the floor and there were some structural issues in there. And so, even though the house looked so beautiful on the outside and the inside, it needed some work. And so, he says, what you've done is you've taken the house of Carrie and you've broken down all those structures.
mhm,
And he says, and now, rather than have this nothing there, you've already built a foundation.
mhm.
So, you're decorating now. He says you're
Yes.
starting to put everything together and you're decorating. You're saying, oh, yeah, I've always wanted a bathroom on the main level. And that's what I'm doing right here. And I've always wanted double doors over here. And he says, but you're building that in such a way that you're accepting yourself because you're not really building double doors. You're accepting those double doors as something that you want. And he's just going a little spin off here because he's saying sometimes you think that there's things that you want and you think that you shouldn't want them. And he says, what if we were to tell you that it's okay to want them and just be an acceptance that that's something that you want for yourself. And he says, because it's the path of least resistance. And he says, so if you really want something for yourself, then be okay with that. That may change. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. But he goes, if that's you, then that's where the acceptance needs to happen. If that's really you and that's what you really desire, that's more important than anything else. And he goes, not any other reasons or why other people would want this or other people would want that. It's about you. And so he says, anything that you want, don't fight with yourself. Don't fight with yourself with, I wish I didn't want this, or I wish I didn't want that. Because he's saying, like, you're building yourself from the inside out. And he says, and you're building your beauty from the inside out. And so the acceptance of that beauty, of that truth, is accepting your differences, is accepting your amazing qualities, accepting that you love to sparkle up, that you love to be who you are. And he says that has the most potential in it for you, rather than dimming any light or saying that you shouldn't be this or you shouldn't be that. He says, accept all of your differences. That's where the building and where that strong structure is. And he says, and you know what they say? You ever driven down into a subdivision and said, whoa, it just seems like yesterday they were just putting the framework up for that house and boom, that building is all up there. He goes, that's what's happening. He goes, your structure is boom, going right up.
I think he's a little bit talking about my self-image. Is that, I don't know how to find the love. I know I'm never gonna get skinny again and again, like as I ever was, but that's not my answer. So I have to retrain my brain to accept myself as
Well, and he
I
says that's
am.
what it, he says that's exactly what it is he says he goes, because you have to remember that there's a good chunk of your mental structure as what society has bent. And that's not just you, he says. That's
No.
so many of us. And so, and he's saying, like, for me too, he's like, there's so many of us that are built in this ideal of what we're supposed to look like, what we're supposed to be.
Yeah.
And he says, and that needs to change on a whole.
Yeah.
And he goes, and that's not an easy thing to do. But he says, this is the beauty about how you are working through with intuitive eating, with, he says, building your own self image. Is, he says, this is more about, where do I feel comfortable? Where does my body feel good? Where does everything feel good for me? Because when you feel good, you will look good. And he
Yes.
goes, and that's where the acceptance will be. Because when you truly have all of those foundations in yourself, it won't matter what society's idea is for anything. It won't matter. It won't matter where other people's ideals are for anything, because you'll know that this is right for me. This is where I feel good. This is where I look good. And he goes, that's all you're looking to obtain. So it really is a rewiring of your brain, of your mind.
So let me ask for I don't, I have let go of expectations. I have let go of looking for answers, but I'm going to try to squeeze one out of him. Um, I just, logically speaking, I feel like when I get my eating under control, I'm not in intuitive eating. You're supposed to not care about weight loss, but I still care. I don't feel comfortable in my body. Will that happen? I mean, just because I will quit eating candy every damn day?
Yeah, he says, yeah, and he goes, and this is fair. This is fair to ask. And he goes, this is kind of what we were talking about. Is, he says, this is the, where does my body feel good? And he goes,
Mhm.
so that doesn't feel good to you. And so
Right. Okay.
that's okay. He goes,
Okay.
that's
Okay.
okay. And so he says, this is kind of like this whole, all right, I'm going to eat candy and this is what I feel like I want to do. But he says, like everything, you're going to get to a point, because he says, remember, it's all part of behaviors. It's part of, he says, just like addictions, food, sugar, all of that stuff. He says, we have to get to a point where we surrender, not because somebody else tells us to, not because we want to fit into a certain size of pants, not because of anything else other than this doesn't feel good anymore.
We're done with the way it was. I don't care what's next. I'm
That's
done
right.
with that.
That's right. And he
Mhm.
says, you've done that with so many other things. So he
That's
says,
why I
like,
have such faith in this process, because
yes,
I've got
yes.
so much experience under my belt.
And he goes, that's the pattern. So he
Hmm.
says, so
Hmm.
think about your patterns, because they work with everything.
They do.
And
I have
yeah,
no doubt in my mind that I will always succeed with everything I ever set out for the rest of my life. But
that's
that
right.
doesn't mean that I don't want a little hint here and there how I get there.
Well, and so he said to look at, he goes, emotion.
Okay.
Because he goes, the thing is this is all, and he shows this all being in balance of the sacral chakra.
Mm.
So this has all to do with the balance in there. And he goes, and this is where you're going to find a lot of your information has to do with where the emotions are. And so he says, this is more about taking stock with how it is that you feel when you are reaching for any food. He goes, not just in that moment. but what has led up to that and what has gone into it afterwards. Like what's the scenario here, he says. What's going on when you're feeling that craving for sugar? Because he goes,
Okay.
it's so easy to say, I want sugar, I want sugar, I want sugar. But there is always something that triggers it because it
Okay.
is like any other thing. He goes, sugar is just like crack for some people. Like it's got that same
Mhm.
desire and drive. He goes, the thing is we can get sugar everywhere and it's all
Yeah.
over the place. And so he says, really go into thinking about how it is that you feel. But he says, furthermore, this is where the mental switching is going to take place because he says, um, sugar is not, and he says, now hear me out here. He goes, sugar in large amounts is a problem. It's a problem for most Americans, it's a problem for most people in this world. And so he says, but can you look at the intake of sugar and can you allow yourself some if you really desire it? Can you allow it without it being a diet, but being I'm going to check my reasons for why I want the sugar right now. I'm going to be mindful in it because he says, here's the thing. Anything that we do when it's in a pattern, when it's a pattern of eating, whether it's smoking, whether it's drugs, whether it's shopping, whether it's spending money, gambling, sex addiction, anything. He says there's always some sort of drive and there's a mental stimulation there, a rewiring that has to take place. And the rewiring doesn't take place by slapping our hands and saying, nope, you can't have it.
Mhm.
Nope, that's bad. He goes, because if you do that, then that turns into shame.
That's
And
my
then that
restriction.
turns
Yep.
into, yeah, he
My
goes, and that
eating
turns into,
disorder. Yep.
yep. And he goes, and then that brings a whole other cycle again. And then it goes right back to, why can't I stop this? So he says, it's more about retraining it. So you have to slow it down
Okay.
because you have to slow everything down. And he says, not just about, and he says that you've done this, you've done the tasting the food, eating the food with your eyes closed, um, feeling the food. He says, and so take that into as many moments as you can throughout the day. And rather than look into restriction, look
Hmm.
into just understanding
Why?
what's going on, why.
Okay. Okay.
And he says play with that, and he says and look for he goes, some days you may feel no desire whatsoever,
Hmm.
and he goes, that's great, and the next day you might, and that's okay too, because he says one day doesn't make a trend, you're looking at cycles. And he says
Okay.
pay attention to what your patterns are, because
Okay.
you are going to see patterns, and once you start to see those patterns, you're going to recognize more, and that recognition will help you. He says your weight will balance out just like your sacral chakra is balancing out. And he says, and so this is how it's done. He says this is no easy task, and you know this whole spiritual path. He goes, anybody that sits back and puts their feet up and says unicorn sunshine la 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 is like fucking joking.
The
He goes,
hardest thing ever. It's
yeah,
so hard. Yeah.
but he says most fulfilling. It's the most fucking fulfilling.
Mm. I'm waiting for those parts. They'll get here. I've had plenty. I've had
Yeah,
plenty, but
yeah,
there's still a little bit of inner work to be done.
yeah, yeah,
Okay, I'm gonna shift a little bit. I have a
yep.
burning question.
Hmm.
Does he have any information that he could give me about who I am to absorb next? I'm a little afraid of that after this Marianna shit.
Hmm. He's talking about integration. He says this is about integration. So, what do you mean by that? He says this is more about integration within yourself rather than absorbing of the other lifetimes.
Hmm.
He goes, we're now into integration. And so, if we think about your higher self
Yeah.
and we think about your, the greater part of your consciousness, of your existence, this is about joining the two so that you can walk
Okay.
together on earth. So he says that's what healing is, because when you're integrating, and he says a lot of your twin work, because for you, relationships were one of your biggest lessons
Uh-huh.
in this lifetime, were the dynamics of many relationships, but ultimately the relationship with yourself. And so absorbing these other karmic energies through other lifetimes, through other existences, he says there's more that you've not had awareness to, because he says that there's other lifetimes that have these little, he says, like pieces of dust, like specks of integration. It's also connected to ancestors, like to other levels, um,
Okay.
other family members, even in your
Hmm.
in this lifetime. He says other family members that have had cycles and have had, he says, things that were never healed in their existence, that you came into this lifetime to carry that, to carry that. Oh my God, carry. Yes, carry that.
What?
Ah, yeah. He's like, he said your name and he's like, get it? Carry, carry. Yeah.
Well, our names are close. We are Carrie and Eric. Is that intentional, Eric?
Yes, 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 yes. He says yes. He's like, yes, yes.
Oh.
He's like, there's so much, there's so much. He says it's all connected. He goes, this is how it's all connected. But he says, so think of it this way. He says, you're on this, in this point right now, it really is about integrating all the stuff up here and bringing it on earth, joining it with
Okay.
this life on earth.
Okay, and what is that? Is it just going to heal me, or am I going to have superpowers and start flying? Just
Well, he goes, he goes, well,
kidding.
that is really where a lot of that stuff comes from, because he says you'll notice that the very first step that really comes into play as a healer specifically is confidence. And he says confidence is a superpower.
Okay.
And he says confidence is what carries everything. So when you're blending your ultimate self, your spirit self, your higher self in with your, so this is duality, he says, so this is your right, because everything's duality. So this is the mind and the heart, up and down. Um, what's up is below, what's left is right. He says the two hemispheres of the brain. So this is like we are one. He goes, now think about what's happening in the world, in the
Mm-hmm.
collective.
Mm-hmm.
It's united. Everything is coming for being united at this time.
So
So he
weird.
says the age of Aquarius, everything is about coming together. So it would make perfect sense that you, so connected to moon cycles, so connected
Hmm.
to the cycles of the universe, that you are having this unification with yourself.
Interesting.
Um, there was something else you were just saying though, Eric. I totally lost you with that one. Um, okay, we'll have, maybe it'll come back. He was going on two streams there, and I was trying to hold on to it.
Oh
It's
no,
like,
I
hold
was
on to it,
crossing
hold
my
on to it.
fingers. I crossed my fingers to try to help me remember. I got my fingers crossed now. So
Yeah, it'll
let me
come back.
ask
It'll come
this.
back.
I know it does. A long time ago, I was told that I was like, why am I so much older than the rest of the members of M6? And they said, well, your mother energy matters, that there's a reason for the order of it. And I've come to wonder if it has nothing to do with M6 and more to do with my actual role as a mother here to help my kids transmute this in the same way I am. I know my boy Josh is doing it. Are my other kids doing that too? Is that
Yes, yes, yes,
okay?
yes. Eric says, he says, and you know that, you
Are
feel that,
are
and
they
that's
all
the truth.
three going to do it? Is Ryan
Yes,
too?
yes,
Wow.
yes.
Do either of them have, do Ryan the twins have like a Wikipedia page like Josh does? Or are they just big
Um,
nobodies like me?
no, he says that all of the kids are going to come into. He says, which one's highly creative? Is it your daughter that's highly creative?
I think that's probably they all are, but I'm going to go
Oh, they
with
all
her.
are. So there's something with her
She's
that
the
is
artist. Yeah.
yes, it's very like she's bringing out something of her talent into the world.
Mm.
And Eric's talking about them being balanced individuals. I don't know if you had some concern or
I'm
something
very
about their
worried right
balance.
now. I'm worried
Yeah,
about them right now. Okay.
yeah.
It's
So
Josh.
because he's saying to like it's okay because he's calling them balanced individuals.
Okay.
And he says that you've worked very hard to be the mother for them that you felt that you needed in that relationship. He says that mothering energy has all to do with who you came in this world to be, was to not look on the outside for that, but to provide that for yourself. And that has reflected in your children, in your relationship with your children. And he says that's success. That's
Yeah.
success.
I'm an awesome mama. I know that.
You are.
Is Josh gonna grow up and start a revolution?
He's a humanitarian. He's a humanitarian. Erik is calling him when there is a cause. When there is a cause. So you might find him standing up for causes right now,
Yes.
or for like a belief or for a cause, because he says that there's going to be a couple causes that he's going to get very involved in, and he's got a leadership, like there's a real leadership energy with him. um and one of your kids has an inventor. There's an inventor energy, like a and it doesn't necessarily mean that they'll invent something as far as like it doesn't mean like Tesla or inventing something in a laboratory, but it's inventing a new idea in the world, like a way to solve a problem, like a way to like something that is thought of as outside of the box. Because Erik says when individuals come from balanced foundations and they are balanced individuals, and he says, and balance is who they are, not balanced as in what the world expects balance to be,
Mm-hmm.
balanced in who they are. And he
Awesome.
says that is success. And he says, and when that occurs with that confidence that you go and be balanced in who you are, in what you believe in, and as long as you feel good and you're standing up and being who you are, he says, then everything else in this world will bring opportunities to you for you to act upon and take advantage of. Um, and there's family with one of them's gonna have a big family, going to have children. Yeah, I know which one of the boys. One of the boys is gonna have.
Really?
Yeah. Hmm.
Oh, that make I just would like to talk 4 hours about the kids, but they have their own path, so I'll let that
Yeah,
go.
that's
But
right.
okay, and I forgot to ask, this could be a quick yes or no, I guess. Is my eating issues, is that the cause of my insomnia? Will that correct itself through?
Yeah, he says it. So as the chakras balance themselves, and he also says so he's talking about so there's like hormonal and how food affects your body,
Mhm.
how you process food.
Okay,
So
yeah.
he says that there might be something to look at with the times that you eat as
Okay,
well. So he
okay,
says start to pay attention to when you eat throughout the day and how close you eat to before you go to bed and what you're eating before you go to bed, because
okay.
your body processing time changes throughout the day.
Huh,
So he says pay
okay.
attention to that as well.
It's a tricky one.
Mhm.
I never thought that, my polycystic ovary shit would affect sleeping patterns. I've been so clueless about my body my whole life.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Wow. Well, he says that it's not something that you will be challenged with your entire life.
okay.
But he says it is something that you will have to be mindful of.
Okay.
So he says healing is not about I healed it, it went away. He says healing can be um, I'm aware of it, I know how to take care of it.
That makes
I know
sense.
how to deal with it.
I don't get to magically just energetically make it go away, but I'll
Yeah,
learn how to
yeah. He says
effectively live with it.
some things he says will go away. Some things will.
Okay, okay.
And he says, but there's other things that'll be like, okay, now I know how to work through this. And he says when you're mindful and with yourself and you understand how you operate, and he says then you're understanding that as you flex and
Mhm.
flux through time, as he says, you'll know how to move with that. It's all about that flow.
Okay. Okay, I'm jumping back to twins again
Okay.
because I just am curious if he could tell me about that dream that I had about Michael's baby. Was that a dream visit? Was I being introduced to his baby?
Did you hold his baby? Yeah. because he says you did hold the baby. You did hold the baby. Yes. And he says that that was like a oh wow. Whew, I feel that. That was like a okay, like I surrender. Like here you go. Like that's okay. That was like a I'm going to let you go and have your baby and be with your baby and have this time. And I'm
Yes.
going to take care of me.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. He says that was very real. Very
I
real.
do I know that baby? Do I know that baby?
He says you do. You do. Um you that baby has been he's showing somebody older. Is this baby a boy? Yeah. It's it because he's showing an older, like a I don't want to say a man, but like a looks to be like 20s, like late teens, 20s. I
Uh-huh.
want to say boy, but like Eric's age. Looks to
Uh-huh.
be like Eric's age. Um so in another lifetime, because Eric's calling there's a connection there. So it was like delivering his soul. It's like you delivered his soul, but it was in a process of release.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Yeah.
Might I ever meet his kids one day?
He says yes. He says that's very possible. Yes.
Okay. Mm. I want to ask more questions about the twins. Uh, Eric, what can you give up about that won't ruin things for me?
Well, he
It's
says, and he says, the thing is too is he says sometimes there are things that are easier. So maybe there's something that you're going to ask that he's okay with saying because he said sometimes we can say things that are uh, where things are at right now, where they're at right now.
uh-huh.
But I don't know what you're going to ask, but he seems to be willing to answer something. So
Huh.
what you're thinking, you might as
Okay.
well ask him.
Okay, well, I guess, just the ultimate question. And I understand that energies shift and paths can change, and I will never take a message as like truth forever and ever, absolute ever, because I've just learned I can't do that. But
Right,
on my current trajectory, I just feel like my relationships with them both are incomplete. I feel like I got to close that circuit, or I feel like even though I've healed, I don't feel like it's done.
right. And he says now part of it is because when you have the twin relationship in that connection, it doesn't always feel complete. He
Mhm.
says because it's that he says there's part of it is that longing. He says it's in the soul. And so you're going to feel that sense of something is not here. That part is not here. But
Mhm.
he says what we will say though is he says that sometimes when you back off. Like he said, and he's saying that's basically what's happened. There's been
Mhm.
a surrender that's taken place.
Mhm.
He says, is there opportunity to come around? He goes, yes. And so what he's saying is, you are feeling something that there will be some sort of coming around.
Okay.
And whether that means that he's coming after or they're coming after you or looking to connect with you. But he says how that happens, though, meaning what is the circumstances around that?
Mhm.
He goes, that's something that is too hard. There's too many variants
Okay.
to be able to really put a stamp on that. But he says there is a draw. So he says if we were to look at it energetically, there's a magnet on both sides that has um still has like sparks. There's still pieces there.
Mhm.
And he says, and so, life experience sometimes things that we are taking care of in our own life keeps the distance
Mhm.
until something flips.
Okay. Mhm. Um, and is that the case for both men?
He's showing the one with the baby.
Okay.
So yeah,
Michael.
more that one.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So interesting.
yeah.
Will I ever have like even just a casual connection with the other one? I mean, will we ever just say, "Hi, how you doing?"
Um, he said there is potential there, but there's something that's changing
Mhm.
in that connection too.
Hmm.
Is there a lot of desire he has for you? Like, is there,
I don't think there's any. I don't even think I'm on his radar, but I could be wrong. I don't know.
because I can feel something there that maybe hasn't, because he says something's changing.
Hmm.
Um, okay, so he says, you know, we're always put in circumstances when we make decisions that help to align things.
Mhm.
And he's speaking of some sort of a meeting, some sort of a like crossing paths in one way or another.
Hmm.
But I feel something very changing with him.
Hmm.
Like just it feels, and Eric's not saying this, this is just my sense into it,
Uh,
is I can feel something shifting with this one. And I really don't know how to put words around that.
okay.
Do you know if he's moving?
I don't even know on what continent he's on.
Oh,
I
you
have
don't
no
know.
idea
Okay.
where he's at.
Okay.
He's just disappeared.
Okay. Because it feels physical. It feels like
He
something shifting physical for him.
he was due for a move at some point, a big move, but I don't know when that was. So maybe that's what's
Okay.
coming up. And okay, is there still a future man that's going to change my life coming my way? Does that still exist, or was that ever a truth? I'm very doubtful of my past messages because they, you know, shook my shit up on purpose.
The way Eric answers that is he says, as you go through these next stages, he goes, that'll be something that within your desire, within yourself, you will or won't create.
Okay, but I haven't met him yet. Is that
No,
right?
no, you
Okay,
haven't.
that
Yeah.
was an important message, and
Yeah.
I'll tell you why in a little bit.
Okay.
Okay, I think I let me go through my list really
Okay.
quick.
Okay.
I didn't think I'd get to all of this stuff, but I think I actually did.
Hmm.
Okay. Oh, okay. I think one of the things that, I told you I have this tumultuous relationship. I think what I'm meant to learn through these battles, he's got his own things that I'm, helping him with. But I think for me, my lesson is to learn how to calm the fuck down because I get, gaslit and my buttons get pushed to the point of it. I think I'm going to have a heart attack and die.
Yeah.
I don't know how to calm down, and I want to in the worst way.
Hmm.
Is that even it? Am I onto something? Is that why I'm being so triggered? Or one of the reasons?
Well, that's a really big one. Okay. What Eric says is he says, when you feel really triggered like this, he says, and he goes, hang with me here because this is a little bit of a circle to this because he goes, we
Okay.
could say to you, all right, take a breath, leave the room. We could go through all those type of things and say it.
Mhm,
But he
mhm.
goes, let's go a little bit deeper
Okay.
and let's look at where the trigger's coming from because this has to do with a pattern of abuse
Mhm,
life.
mhm.
And so
Yes.
he says it's bringing up that whenever this happens, it brings up that pattern of abuse.
Mhm.
But he says, so how we work to heal that is we go into the other person. And he goes, and this is a little counterintuitive of what we say when we say it comes from you, it comes from
Yes,
you.
I
Because it
understand that.
does. He says the reactiveness comes from you. So how we react, that comes from you. But he says to get to a point where we can start to settle the reactions allows us to come to where is that person coming from? Why are they doing that? Because often the people that are creating the projections
Mhm.
and that are putting that type of behavior out are coming from a place of themselves
Right.
that has a sense of abuse that they've experienced or something that they're denying within themselves. And
Mhm.
Eric says, take a little time to investigate and go into that part of things. And he says, because what will happen is it's like healing two things at one time because you
Okay.
have this understanding over here and then you have this understanding within yourself because then you start to realize that it's really not about you. that it's
Okay.
about a projection of their own. And so what happens is that starts to change that inner turmoil, because what happens is when we don't understand that bigger picture, it bubbles the inner turmoil, because then we're taking that in as
Hmm.
something against us directly.
Yes.
That's my abuse, that's my trigger, that's my. And so he says, and really it's coming from them, from a place within them,
Hmm.
being projected to you. So he says this is about breaking it apart. And then this will make a shift inside of you, because then you'll say, oh, okay, I see it from that point. So it allows you to take this little step out of that circle of quick reaction. And he says, and you'll notice that your reaction times will change. That's where it will give you that second of space where you will even see it happen in real time, that you'll notice the reaction happen. You'll even go into, I see what's happening. You'll see it all take place in real time. And then you can take the tools, the tools
Uh-huh.
and the things that you know to do to either walk away from the conversation, take a deep breath, or is this something that I'm going to talk about later, because in this moment right now, nothing is going to happen
Right,
here.
right.
Right. And he goes, that's when you start to do, and that's discernment. And he goes,
Okay.
and that's a whole new level of self love. And when you do that, that then he says starts to change the energy of that patterned relationship.
Mm.
And he
'Cause
goes, before you know it, it's different.
okay, my husband is such a good man, he really is, and but I see the trauma that he
Yeah.
experienced as a child, and so, I had to outsource. I had to go to the twins, and I had to do all of these external relationships for all my
Yeah.
healing. But with my husband, I am the mirror for him.
Yes.
So even though ultimately it's up to him to want to change, I feel like I've really been the one trying to teach an old dog new tricks.
Yeah.
So I see how he says ultimately it's on you, it's your stuff, but at the same time, we are definitely working together.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I get what he means about
Yeah.
that kind of,
Yeah.
loophole.
Yeah. Yeah. He says
Okay.
it's tricky. He goes, because this is the hard part. He goes, because you can see that unless you're actually going through it, it's very difficult to explain. He goes, that's why there's a lot of trust the process, because you have to get to these different levels of
Hmm.
yourself
Hmm.
to be able to see that, or to be able to have the patience to really walk through it.
Yes, I feel like a superhero. I feel like, oh man, tomorrow I got to go back. I got to clock in and go to work knowing that there's going to be a fight. I know it. And I just,
And he says, he says, and here's the thing, you came into this life to do just this.
okay.
This is you. He says, so some people might go and actually clock in somewhere and do something.
Yes, this
But
is
he
my
says,
job.
this is your job. And he goes, and accept that and be good with that, because you've been given the opportunity to do that. Because this has big potential on levels that you can't see. He goes, things that you can't even see right now. But he goes, it's already happened. It's already happening. And he says, and what's the prize in this? It's peace. It's your peace, and not
Yes.
peace because anybody else gave it to you, because you're able to give it to yourself.
And um oh, I just lost it. I just lost it. Oh, is it time? And I won't keep you too much longer, Michelle.
That's okay. It's okay.
Um I was told once before too that I healed for everyone. I don't know what that means. Does he mean like everyone in M6 I did healing for? Or I feel like now, I do the same things as the collective world does
Yes.
too. Is it
Yes. Yes.
okay?
And he says yes. M6 and bigger. And he says, so that's why he says, that's why I take it very seriously that this is your job, and be okay with that. Because when you do this work for yourself, this is, he goes, you're taken care of. The universe will always take care of you. He goes, you're a magical manifester. You know that.
I always have
Yes.
weed money.
Yes. Always. Always. You have everything that you need.
I
Always.
do have that comfort. I mean, I haven't
Yes.
had a client in over a year, but I always have the money I need.
Yes.
Thanks.
Yes. And that's, but he says you do that. You do that because and he says it's because of your willingness to continue to do your work. And he says, and you do it for the collective, because he says that's why he's pointing to the cycles so much, because you integrate. He says you're an empath, but he says empath isn't even the right word for it, for who you are. because your sensitivity is on levels that are very deep and swallow energy for many.
That
And
is
he
so weird because I feel like, like I remember Allison used to hand me a rock and she'd say, "Wow, do you feel the power of that?" And I'd be like, "No, it feels like a rock." So somebody that's supposedly so in tune with energy, I don't feel like I'm in tune with energy at
because
all.
this is who you naturally are.
Oh,
You've always been this way. And so you're not looking at it as you naturally absorb everything and you feel it in your own life. You feel the intensity in your own life. And so, there's could have you could be walking through a store and you're picking up on the energy of all the people around you and you may not really know what's going on. But then you go home and you have an argument or something takes place and then that you blow up inside and they're like, "What the hell? Oh my
I
god."
yeah,
Right?
I do got to
And
decompress from the energy of the
right,
grocery store.
right.
Ooh.
So when you feel that kind of stuff, so think about
Okay.
how you feel physically, not about necessarily how you're feeling energy on the outside of your physical body, but think of
Okay.
how you feel inside. That's
Okay.
where the power is. And the more powerful you are in that way, what has always been, Eric says, as maybe what you think is a deficit of all the emotions
Hmm.
and the frustration, he goes, that's your power. That's power. So he
Hmm.
says
How
it's
do
the
I
freaking
transform that from feeling like a deficit and how do I make it like a work for me? How do I
what what we just talked about.
Okay.
You said exactly what we just talked about because when you start to take the acceptance of, first of all, okay, this is how I feel. And he says, and it's understanding what it is. So when the emotion comes up inside of you and you understand, he goes, not just on the level of, okay, well, whatever, say whatever the argument is, he says it's going deeper into it, where it's coming from, what it creates. He goes, it's the work that we've talked about today. It's that dedication to being who you are.
Okay.
That's your job. And he says, and that joining, he says, the higher self to the human self, that's what happens. He goes, that's the power. And he says, remember, we said confidence is a superpower.
Yes.
That's what this is. You build
Okay.
that confidence. He goes, it's like having a shield on you that nobody can break. And it doesn't matter, he says, what the fuck anybody else says to you, what
Mhm.
they do, what they think, you know who you are. And you're strong in who you
Yes.
are. And he goes, there's a difference between just saying it and a difference between being empowered with it.
And is that something that I'm gonna, master
Yes.
relatively quickly?
He says you're doing it. And it all has to do with he goes, your willingness to just keep going forward. Even when
Right.
you can't see right in front of you, he goes, keep going with the flow of it. Go with the
Okay.
patterns. Go with the patterns.
Okay.
He's helping.
Gosh.
He says he's helping. He's helping you. He'll
Thanks,
never let you
Eric.
down.
I know it. I know it. I feel so like disconnected from him in many ways because he's like belongs to everybody. But I know he belongs to me too in a personal way, and
He
that
does.
one's
He does. And he just says, it's like this peace in your heart that he's showing, like curling back up in and snuggling in.
mm,
So he says he always comes back in. So
mm.
not to worry.
Well, I'm going to set Michelle free, Eric, but before I do you have any last things that you wanted to tell me that I ought to know that I haven't thought of?
He's bringing me to like a pair of pants. Why he's showing me like show me your butt in a pair of pants.
My butt or his
Yes,
butt? My butt?
you
Oh.
like saying something about a
Well,
pair
how
of
does it
pants.
look?
Like he's like, I don't know if there's like a pair of pants that you're like looking at, wishing that you were wearing or
Yes.
something.
Am I going to fit into my Walmart pants again?
Because he's like giving you like it's about setting goals that feel right for you. Because he's talking about you looking good in a pair of pants.
That's it then. That was my question. My Walmart pants, because they are not skinny girl pants, but they are not, the size I am now. I would be so satisfied if I could get back in those plus size still pants.
And he says, and that's where you have goals that are for you. They're your goals,
Okay.
where you
Right. That's not society's goal because that's way too fat to be society's goal, but that one will
just
work for
fuck
me.
society. Fuck
Right.
society.
I'm with you. I'm so anti diet culture. I want to just, stab it.
He
Can you?
showed he's got like he showed I could see you standing in front of a mirror, okay? Like a long mirror, and like you're turning and looking at yourself like,
My butt.
"Ooh, yeah, yeah." And
You know,
he's like, "Yeah, that looks good. That looks good."
I mean, I'm such into deep a place of self-loathing, and I've given up all of the hopes of, well, not hopes. I still hope for love to come my way, but right now, like my most like saddest part is just my image. I don't want to feel ugly. So again, I know that I'll get there, but it's really nice to get that,
Well,
that message
and
about my Walmart
he
jeans.
also says to he says that have compassion with yourself because he says it's we see ourselves,
Mhm.
especially when we've been through abuse and we've abused ourselves. We've let other
Yes.
people abuse us. He says we start to see ourselves in a distorted way. We
Yes,
don't
I
see
do.
ourselves the same way. And so he says, and know that how you are viewing that is not truly who you are, not truly how you are.
And I'll conquer that. I'll find my
Yes,
place.
you
Okay.
will. You will. He goes, that's what you came here to do.
Okay.
You're doing it.
Okay, I'm not hanging up yet, but I'm going to wrap up this video,
Okay.
okay?
Okay.
Okay, so I wanted to thank Eric. I wasn't sure who was going to come, and I'm so glad it was him. And I thought that he would too, because I know that you two have a relationship too. So I was like, oh, I hope it's Eric. And I'm so grateful to you, Michelle, for bringing me this information. I've been looking so
Oh,
forward to this for so long.
me
We've
too.
been trying to schedule this since December. It's
Yes.
now, towards the end of March, and it finally
Yep.
happened. We both knew that the stars would align and it would happen
Yep.
when it was meant to.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to press stop, but
Okay.
don't go yet.
I
Okay.
won't.
All right.
Okay.
Okay, guys.
Bye,
Okay.
everybody.
Bye. Thank you. All right, well, I'm back again. So clearly there's a little bit more to be said. And let me just tell you briefly a little interval here until we give you the bonus feature. I had a private question to ask Michelle, and I will probably share that part of my journey at a future date because it is part of my story. But for now, I wanted to not feed that any energy right now. However, that question led to others, and we got to talking a little bit. So I pressed record again, and I thought it was worth sharing. We spoke about the ways in which my timeline has changed when I was Marianna because of the work I've done here in this life as Carrie. So that was pretty cool. In the future, I want to explore that a little bit more. I was kind of telling Michelle how I want to kind of do what I used to do back at Shiny and kind of what she does now with channeling Erik. But the more I thought about that, the more I decided I still want to make it all about me. So kind of like combining the two, this one, and making it a balance. So I really like to get into that woo-woo stuff. And I like to channel whatever, people, things, whatever. I love that crazy stuff. But I want to do it in a context so where I could always pluck out questions for me. I didn't feel right about doing that in the other shows, Stardust and Shiny, because it wasn't about me, but this one is. So I get to do that. Wouldn't that be fun? Well, it will be for me. But anyway, the best of both worlds. You guys, you listening as viewers can listen to what Spirit has to say, like in general, and I get to learn about me specifically. It's a win-win. All right, you guys. So, keep watching. There's another 5 minutes about what happens when we do work in other timelines. All right, guys. Thanks again.
In a level, what he's doing right now is his help with us, like his help with you
Mhm.
and others as well, is to help correct. But he
Mm.
says even correct is not the right word. It's more
Because
like
there's no wrong answers. So,
that's right. That's right. Because he says it's like because he's still connected to us with our conscious awareness in these other lifetimes from his death. And I don't know how I fit into that somewhere because I feel that.
I was just going to ask, were you
Yeah,
in the brothel?
yeah,
Were you
yeah.
my sister
I'm
whore?
somewhere. I'm somewhere in it. I'm somewhere in it because I know I am. I know I am. He's not really giving me any details on that, but I
Erik.
know I am. He's saying that I was a friend to him.
Oh.
He's saying I was a friend to him, and I was female. But he's not saying that him and I ever got together. He's saying that we were friends.
Hmm.
That he I fed him. I
Hmm.
fed him. I gave him food.
That's funny because he brought me food. He's probably taking the bread from you and bringing it to me.
Maybe he was. Maybe he was. Maybe I was cooking for him and he was taking the food. There's
So
Hey,
interesting.
look what's happening right now. I'm we're it's coming the other way around. He's feeding me information. I'm feeding
Wow,
it
we're
to
doing it
you.
again. It's my bread. That's
Shit.
interesting.
Holy shit. No, but he just says that he says it's not really karmically, but he says that there's a lot of like loops that were created. If we were to think about the timelines, a lot of loops created that are that he says a loop, not a circle, that are being turned into a circle
Why
now.
did he choose to die? Was your just body just couldn't hang and you had no choice?
He says it was an exit point and he'd had enough.
Mm, okay.
And he says there's a lot of transference in that life to this one. And
Yeah.
that's why there's so much information, like so much bleed through information that we have tangibly.
Uh-huh.
There's a lot of it's like a richness. The energy is so thick. That's why we can all read into it so much, because there's so much imprint into
So
it, because
interesting. Yeah. I
some
mean,
some
I have
lifetimes are little, like we could just get bits and pieces of it, but there's like a real
this one.
imprint.
I feel intertwined and interwoven. I really feel
Yeah,
like, is it a fair statement to say I've like absorbed this
yeah,
incarnation of
yeah,
Marianne?
yeah,
Oh God, I started recording again, just in case. So I wanted to ask this: how
yeah.
has my healing in this life healed Mariana? How has it changed her timeline? Has it? Is she a happier girl?
He says no longer selling her body, no longer selling her body, um, like moving past that life
Mm,
into a life that is the life that she had dreamed in her mind, the life that she had wanted. So there's now hope. There's now hope
mm.
for better. And
Because
so he says, yeah,
how old was she when she got to get out of that life? Still kind of youngish.
still kind of young, because he's showing like very early 30s.
Because I don't think that was the case before. Because she
Yeah,
basically said they turned me out to pasture. Nobody wanted me anymore.
yeah, yeah,
Oh, did I change
yeah.
her path? Did I change
Yes,
it?
you did. Yes, you did.
Oh, that's
Yes, you
so
did.
cool, isn't it?
It's amazing, because he says this is the beautiful thing, is that we don't really realize how our choices every day are affecting our other timelines and other people. And he says, and that's why it's so important that we make our choices and decisions aligned with our own heart, with ourselves. And when we do that for ourselves, and acceptance of what is right for us, not for other people, that's where healing comes from. That's what all of this is about.
Mm,
That's why we come into this earth. He says it's so much more than what we could ever understand. He says one piece of paper couldn't list it all. This
mm.
is like the Akashic records, because he's showing me books and books and books and books and lifetimes that change. And he shows me the paper, like the words on the paper are disappearing and reappearing. So it's
Wow.
rewriting. It's
All the
rewriting.
time. God, that's so trippy. Because we really, at the beginning of our spiritual, I don't know about you, but I really felt like there was an order to it. There was a
Yeah,
fate and we were going
me
to do it
too.
this way. Yeah.
Me too. Me too. Yeah. It's
Um,
amazing how that changes,
mhm.
like how we go through all of these different experiences and we understand it. And Eric says it's our consciousness expands, and we're able to take in more, and we see it from, even though we're still human, we
Mhm.
still have that linear way our brain operates, but we're able to take this much bigger picture approach to things.
Yes, I feel like that's like one of my biggest roles as a mom is, teaching my kids. You still got to do all your 3D shit, but when things
Yes,
happen, see it from this other place
yes,
and see why is this happening? Let me learn,
yes,
let me see it both places. Yeah.
yes. Yeah, it's an amazing gift.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, okay, I'm gonna let you go for real this time.
Okay.
But I
This
am
is
so
fun.
grateful for this. Can we do it again?
Yes, of course.
Okay, I
Of
actually want to, like, my shit's gonna change. I can't keep talking about unrequited love for boys for the rest of my life. So I really want to get into something more like what I did before, with
yeah,
Heather or with Allison and just,
yeah.
well, what you already do.
Yeah.
So can I count on you every couple
Yes.
of months? Really?
Yes,
Really?
of
I
course.
want you to
I'd
help me
love
grow
to.
my show. Really?
I
Oh,
would love to. I would love to. That would be so fun. And I love
really?
yes.
Okay.
Oh my gosh. You
I need
say this
that
like
confidence.
I'm like, yes.
All right,
Woo!
let's make this a more regular thing then.
Okay,
And we'll
sounds
go
good.
to, we'll get into some crazy shit, not just about me.
I
Although,
love it.
just
I'd love
kidding.
to. I'd love to.
Okay, Michelle,
I think we could go places. I think we could go places.
let's go then.
All
I'm
right.
going to go buy our tickets. All right.
Okay.
Okay,
Sounds
I
good.
love you. I love
Okay,
you.
I
I have
love you
such
too.
gratitude, and I'm looking
Mwah.
forward to reviewing this and seeing
Okay.
you again soon.
All
Okay.
right.
All
I
right,
love
girlfriend.
ya.
Bye. I
Mwah.
love you.
I love you.
Bye.
Bye.